My daughter's been living with me for the past couple of months, and while she's finally working, only part-time, it took me to nearly force her to find a job. My grandson is a toddler, and my daughter's 20. His father's in and out of his life, so I primarily babysit my grandson while my daughter works, runs errands, etc. I love my grandson and my daughter, but it's not my due responsibility to care for him 24/7, and I'm not required to do so. I raised my kids and did my best, so I shouldn't have another weight on my shoulders or have to raise another child because she had him so young. Yesterday, my daughter worked from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., and I worked overnight from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., and this is my regular full-time shift. I told my daughter that I could not watch him because I was tired. Nevertheless, she put him on my bed and said she didn't have a sitter. I'd had enough of being forced to watch him against my wishes in my own home, so once she left, I called her, texted her, but no response, and she ignored my calls. At that point, I grabbed my things, grabbed my grandson, and dropped him off at the police station and told them that my grandson was abandoned in my home and that I couldn't reach my daughter and that I was unable to care for him. They said okay, got her contact info, and were unable to reach her, which at that point I went home. A few hours later, my daughter called me crying, telling me that the police had turned him over to CPS and refused to return him. They're saying she neglected him and child abandonment, which she did. My daughter thinks I'm an idiot, and it's unfortunate she no longer has access to her son, but this is simply not my responsibility. Am I the idiot? I mean, are you for real? I get that daughter was totally out of line, but didn't you feel scared as his grandma, dumping him at the police station? And now he's been taken by CPS. Your daughter's the idiot for doing that, but that was really, really heartless and cold of you as grandma to him. Now that CPS is involved, they'll continue to be involved, so I hope there's more to this. I'm going with everyone's the idiot here because I just can't fathom someone doing this to their grandchild. He has to be scared to death. This poor, poor baby. My heart is breaking for him. Wow, my mother-in-law would light herself on fire before she did this. I asked if she would take him if something happened to me, and she said absolutely, without question. OP is a vile person. Her daughter's irresponsible, but OP is a next-level idiot. It's pretty clear why your daughter's such a poor parent. Look at that poor girl's example. You are the idiot for using the police to teach your daughter a lesson and lying to the police about the child being abandoned. They have better things to do. Also, you're the idiot for not communicating with your daughter better. Honestly, if you had been clear and not let her live with you in the first place, or been firm from the outset, it might have forced her to find living arrangements where her baby didn't suddenly end up at the police, described as abandoned. She absolutely did lie to police. I agree with all of this. Your daughter's 20. You let her move back in with her son, who's a baby. Yes, 20 is an adult, but as her parent, you had to realize what this situation would actually look like. If she can't afford to live on her own and only works part-time as of recently, which you admitted you forced her to do, how is she going to pay for a babysitter? Taking your grandson to the police was a big overreaction. You could have driven the kid to her work, handed him over, and walked away if you wanted to embarrass her into being more responsible. Instead, you put your child's child into Child Protective Services out of spite. Backstory. I, female 20, have a Japanese name, even though I'm not ethnically Japanese. My mom is Korean and my dad is British. They met and fell in love while studying in Japan and had me there after marrying. We lived there until I was 14, before moving to the States. This will be important later on. Today, a group of my roommate's friends came over to study with her, and I happened to be in the living room when they arrived. They were introducing themselves to me, and when I said my name, I have a pretty common Japanese girl's name, so it's pretty hard to be mistaken about the origin. One of the girls made a disgusted face and laughed at me, saying that was so dumb. She said that she was Japanese American, and I was culturally appropriating her country as a white person. I tried to explain that I lived in Japan for a while, and that was why, but she kept insisting I was lying, and that if I was telling the truth, I could speak the language. Since she put it like that, I started talking to her in Japanese, basically explaining where I lived there and asking which prefecture her parents were from, etc. She ends up stuttering through a sentence awkwardly before leaving in a huff. Later, my roommate told me I embarrassed her by pretending to be more Japanese than an actual Japanese person and appropriating the culture, and her friend expected an apology. My roommate doesn't think I did anything wrong, but now I feel kind of bad. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. OMG. The Japanese American guest was out of line, making rude comments about your name and accusing you of lying when you told her you'd grown up there. You weren't pretending anything. You have a Japanese name because that's the name your parents chose for you, and you speak the language because you grew up there. As a white person, if your mother's Korean, you're biracial. Hit back by telling everyone you're expecting an apology from her for disrespecting your identity and minimizing the discrimination that people of Korean blood experience in Japan. If she wants to play social justice poker, show her you've got a full house and make her pay up. The girl obviously feels stupid, as she should. You were literally being introduced, and she came out of the gate accusing you of cultural appropriation because of your name? That's so rude and disrespectful, and completely unwarranted. The right thing would be for her to admit she's wrong or drop it. Instead, she escalated the situation, only for you to repeatedly prove her wrong. And now she needs an apology for being offensive? Please do not apologize to this girl or be in her presence if you have the choice. This whole situation has gotten way out of hand, to the point everyone is yelling at everyone, and I'm sleeping in the guest bedroom. My wife's parents are at the point where they can no longer live alone. Their children decided the best place for them was an assisted living facility. They started to look into different facilities, and admittedly, I didn't help because I figured the 5 adult siblings could handle it, and I was never close to my in-laws. They found one that was perfect, and my wife was very excited when she told me about it. I was less than thrilled when I learned our contribution would be roughly $3,000 up front and then $5,000 monthly. I immediately questioned why it costs roughly $15,000 upfront fee and $25,000 a month for 2 people to live in an assisted living apartment. I admit, I sarcastically asked if their apartment was next door to Elon Musk's parents. She then told me that we would cover the lion's share of the cost because we make more than her siblings. That was the beginning of a week of text, phone, and in-person arguments. She argues that her siblings make less money combined than we do. Some are single, so it would impact them more, so it's only fair we pay more. She also argues that this facility is not the best or the most expensive. It's a mid-tier one with the best ratings. According to her, anything lower has bad ratings and could put her parents' safety in jeopardy. My argument is that there are 5 siblings, so the cost should be divided equally between the 5 of them. I also argued that if 5 people can't afford that place, they need to lower their standards. That started a circular argument for hours between cost and safety. I couldn't take it anymore, and in the heat of the moment, I yelled, "We don't make more than your brothers and sisters. I make more than all of you, which is why you all want me to cover the cost for your parents." That was the beginning of my night sleeping in the guest bedroom. I know as a married couple, I shouldn't consider mine and yours income, but realistically, I do make more than all of them, and I think it's unfair to make me pay the largest portion. Am I the idiot for telling my wife we won't pay our fair share for her parents' assisted living? Edit. I assumed it was $25,000 a month because I assumed it was split 5 ways between the siblings, and our share was $5,000 a month. It'll be closer to $10,000 a month, and our share is $5,000. Her parents have assets, including a house, so I was told they don't qualify for government assistance. I brought up the idea of selling their house, but was shot down immediately. The siblings want to keep the house in the family because their great-grandfather built it or something. I can afford to pay it, but I don't want to pay it based on principle. Their division means I'll be paying $5,000 a month, while the youngest brother will only be paying $300 a month, and will be living in the house. They think he'll be paying the insurance and taxes on the house, so he can't afford more than $300. Not the idiot, and I'm pretty sure alimony would be cheaper. Do not pay that much. If you're still willing to help, tell them a number that you're willing to pay, and that's it. They have to find the rest of the money or lower their standards. Your wife is way out of line, demanding you pay this. She has to start sleeping on the couch. You can't be asked to pay for your in-laws to live that far above their means. They made their choices in life. Jesus, my 3,000 square foot house, car note, and all of my bills don't cost that much. The fact that you were left out of the decision process and then expected to pony up the equivalent of a $700,000 mortgage payment is really an unreasonable ask. The cost should be split evenly. If it can't be afforded, then they need to find a cheaper place. I would not be part of a family that uses just marry a guy who makes a lot of money and have him pay it as their long-term parents' care plan. Also, the parents still own their home, but the siblings refuse to let it be sold? That's ridiculous. They're asking OP to contribute $5,000 a month so they can keep their inheritance. Absolutely not. I would refuse to pay a dime until the house was sold and the sale proceeds should be used solely for the in-laws' care. If the siblings are so distraught about some family house, then one of them can take out a mortgage and live there and pay their parents' fair market value for the house to keep it in the family. This is also a hill I would stand on. The other siblings and OP's wife are taking advantage of him because he earns more. That's not okay. My 42 female, husband 48, of 3 years and I have a blended family. He has 2 daughters, nearly adult and tween, and I have a daughter, older tween, and a son, young teen, Ethan. My son has cerebral palsy, but despite being in a wheelchair, he's mostly independent, and all but one of his grades in school has been an A or B. My husband is a dentist who started his own practice 2 years ago and has been growing in his social media presence. He wanted to showcase his kids and family as part of it, so we've done cute pictures of the girls with cute pink scrubs on, sitting in Dad's chair, stocking up the waiting room with toys, etc. Since the social media accounts have been gaining traction, there's been a lot of drama. His ex, 47 female, was angry that her younger daughter was being tagged in posts that listed Botox as part of the services offered. She also said her tween could not consent to be featured on a public Instagram the way her older sister could. So my youngest stepdaughter was erased from my husband's public accounts. Labor Day's coming up, and my husband is throwing a party and doing a photo shoot. My husband wanted to showcase us as a blended family, so I assumed it would be all our kids minus his tween. However, he told me he wasn't crazy about having Ethan at the party. He does suffer from dysarthria, so his speech can be a bit distorted. However, my husband's major concern is that Ethan can be a bit slow with social cues and can talk on and on. It's been an adjustment with regard to my husband and Ethan. Ethan is known as a class clown. Most people think he's funny, but my husband complains he doesn't get the jokes. In addition, while my husband has introduced my daughter to many business associates and on social media, many people don't know that much about Ethan. My husband said he didn't want a picture with Ethan, and people online going, "Wait, who's he?" My husband asked that we send Ethan to his dad's for the party and photo shoot. I asked my ex to take him for the long weekend, and he was upset. He said my husband looks down on disabled people, and he's been excluding Ethan. He demanded I say that either both kids are included or none are. I told him I wasn't going to threaten to not support my husband at his event or photo shoot. It is his party, and therefore his choice, and I wasn't going to ruin his wish to have a blended family presence and picture. My ex said he thinks I'm in some honeymoon period fog, and that he liked my husband at first, but he's seen scorn in the way he looks at Ethan. He said to mark his words, and that if I didn't stick up for Ethan, he'd be exerting his own parental rights to the fullest extent, going forward with regards to both kids. Am I the idiot? Edit. I wish my husband would invite Ethan, but sometimes two people have trouble getting along, and I think that's what's happening here. My husband has countless patients who are sick or disabled. The word scorn is an insult to his character. You are the idiot. You're telling your son that you don't care about him to please your husband. He's a kid. You're supposed to be his mom. Your husband is an adult, and he should be called out or kicked out. All he wants is a blended family that's good for his image. Ugh. Hope your ex reams you. At least the kid will know he has one decent parent. Your husband can like disabled, paying patients and still dislike your non-paying disabled son. Put yourself in your son's shoes. How would you feel if your stepfather excluded you from everything due to something you can't help, your disability? How would your father feel if your stepfather said, "Hey, I want to showcase all of us as a blended family, minus Talia, because she's slow with social cues and can talk on and on"? Would you feel accepted by your stepfather if that were to happen to you? I hope that it blows up in their faces too. They're both idiots for this. She's acting oblivious, which is just as bad as him not wanting the son there. OP, the "they just don't get along" thing would work if they were both adults. But one of them is a child with a disability. They're not on equal terms. One's supposed to be some sort of parent. And you don't even get it. Fascinating. Your son deserves a good mom. Too bad you're not that. I, 27 female, accomplished something awesome at work, and I wanted to celebrate. So I went to my favorite restaurant to treat myself to my favorite meal. It was all great at first. I had my laptop and got some work done while waiting for my food. I had just started eating when a family of 4 with kids, probably a preschooler and a toddler, sat at the table beside me. I was surprised because it's not an environment known to be hospitable to kids. Initially, the kids were quiet. It got progressively worse as they sat there. The little one was crying, the older one was shouting, and they went on and on. My sound-canceling earbuds didn't help me much, so I asked to be moved to a different table. The restaurant wasn't very big, so I could still hear them crying and shouting. I barely enjoyed my food and was really angry because I very rarely get to have time for myself, and I really wanted to enjoy this. As I paid, I told the father that I hoped they enjoyed their meal because I barely could. He got mad and said I had no right to say anything about them, and went on to say he had barely had the time to eat out as a family and that I was being rude for no reason. I said sacrificing social events is part of parenting and that their kids were particularly loud. The argument went on for a bit more, but the couple seemed terribly angry at me. Was I the idiot? Not the idiot, but I'm sure your words fell on deaf ears, pun intended. It's becoming increasingly common for parents to not only bring their children to not child-friendly locations, but also to let them act ridiculous while there, and they won't care that your day or experience was ruined. Yep, if my brother and I acted up or were loud, our parents took us outside for a chat. If it happened again, we left, and it was again explained to us that our behavior was inconsiderate of others. We learned very early on that our behavior in public, especially in theaters or restaurants, needed to be different than at home. I'm having a lot of trouble imagining a restaurant that's both not child-friendly and simultaneously A-OK with busting out a laptop on one of their tables. You are the idiot. You're in public. You don't get to control others. I don't have kids and find them annoying in restaurants too, but it's part of going out. Besides, if it's the type of place you have a laptop open and earbuds in, I don't think we're talking about a fine dining establishment here. People with kids get to exist too.